Hello and welcome to today's special podcast hosted by the South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. I'm your host, Tasvi Fatma Naqvi from Turkey, and I'm delighted to have you join us for this important conversation. On this Dalit History Month, we are reflecting on the enduring legacy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a jurist, social reformer, and one of the most powerful voices against caste based discrimination in India. His work continues to shape conversations around equality, justice, and human rights not only in South Asia but globally. Today, I am joined by a distinguished guest, a Commonwealth scholar, and a passionate Dalit rights advocate, Ms. Aarti Rajput. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tasvi, for inviting me for the South Asian Research Institute for Minorities on the podcast of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and his legacy that we are carrying forward as Dalit scholars, Dalit students. And that is a biggest privilege for me to be here and talk about my experiences as a Dalit student across borders. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, Aarti, to begin with, could you introduce yourself and share your journey from India to the UK as a Dalit student? Like, were there any challenges or what was your pathway? Can you take us through it all?
Sure. So, my name is Aarti, as you said, Aarti Rajput, and I hail from a very small town in Delhi, which you can consider as a slum. But apart from that, I started my initial schooling from a government school, and then after that, I got into one of the good institute of Delhi University, Lady Shri Ram College for Women, to pursue a bachelor's in political science honors. And then after that, I pursued a diploma course from there in conflict transformation and peace building. After that, I worked for a few years. And then I started applying for my master's. And I was applying for the scholarship because without scholarship, it wasn't possible for me to pursue a master's even in India or abroad. So I applied for scholarship. In my first attempt of scholarship, I couldn't get selected for the scholarship, but I got into the colleges that I wanted to be in. And then in the second year, I applied again and I got selected for the Commonwealth Scholarship. And I got shortlisted for the Chevening Scholarship as well. That is being provided by the UK government to all the students. And after that, I went for 1 year master's in University of Sussex in Development Studies. And apart from that, I when I went there and I realized that that is the opportunity that is being given to the students from the marginalized caste students in a very rare occasions. I felt like I need to make the most out of this opportunity, and that's how I ended up contesting an election and becoming the education officer in the University of Sussex. Apart from that, I worked in some of the research projects as well in university. Where in the with the Institute of Development Studies, I worked on anti-caste commitment research project, where I highlighted some of the structural inequalities that is prevailing in the institutions in India or across borders, which are actually making the task of the Dalit students to study and pursue their higher studies because of their structural disadvantages and the social economic barriers that they have to come across. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I absolutely loved how you tried to make the most of your journey over there. And so, moving towards our next question, how do international students from marginalized backgrounds navigate identity in multicultural environments like UK, where a lot of people from different cultures gather together for their masters and studies?
All right. I think I should start it from my school days as well. So when I was studying in my government school, initially with my the school that I have in my locality, didn't have any experience of caste discrimination or anything, because then after studying about it and after meeting a lot of people from the upper caste, I realized that why I wasn't able to see any discrimination in my locality, because everybody was same. So when I entered in LSR, I realized that the people who were there are coming from a very privileged backgrounds. And the thing is, they don't really realize it, that how privileged they are and how that system which is being established to educate everyone is actually inevitably help them, because the institute is being trained and being instructed and built in a manner that would be helpful for the people who are coming from the privileged caste. So when I entered, I mean, in LSR, it was very much evident for me to see how I was struggling in terms of even getting the basic bare minimum resources such as opportunities, the equality cell that we had, equality opportunity cell that we have. And at the same time, there was no such mechanism for me to actually go to and talk to the people, what kind of struggles I'm facing in terms of doing my research, doing my readings, navigating with the structures and navigating with the system that is there. Apart from that, when I crossed the borders and I went for studies abroad, I realized that I was the only Dalit in the entire institute. I was the only Dalit student, although the majority of the people were from India. But at the same time, there was no one from the marginalized caste. And that's when I started reflecting on this idea that how the structural inequalities are being ingrained in us, that we don't really think about it, that we have certain kind of community over and over again being represented in global institutions, where the marginalized community on which the research is built, on which the evidences are being extracted to do wonderful research, they are not really given the chances to be in those rooms and to be discussed. And that is the kind of disparities I found. And initially I was literally struggling, and I was considering myself not to be belong to those places, because I feel like, okay, my structural barriers are my personal barriers. But at the same time, that research institute and the kind of support that I got from my professors and some of my friends as well, I realized that these structural disadvantages are need to be discussed in terms of making people understand how privileged they are and how their caste is actually helping them to reach to the places where they are right now, while at the same time they are actually snatching away some of the resources, some of the opportunities from the people that should be there equally distributed to all among all the people. So I feel initially, if a student who is coming from the marginalized caste is navigating in these spaces, first of all, they would feel very underconfident and at the same time feel very alone, because they don't have anyone to actually share their experiences, what they are going through. And this is the kind of experiences I was having, and I was navigating through the system on my own. So when I realized, and thanks to all the mentors that I had, so because I got this scholarship, because I got mentorship from one of the organization in India that has been established by a Dalit scholar, Raju Kendre, and from Eklavya. And because of his mentorship and the kind of support that his mentorship and his team has provided me, that really helped me make the most out of that opportunity. And that's where I got the confidence to speak about it. And thanks to that, we come up with a research project with my professor that was on anti-caste commitment in UK higher education, where I did some of the research stuff, and at the same time I moderated one of the session where with the academic scholars and with the people who are working in the sector of caste and social inequalities, where we raised some of the crucial concerns, how these structural inequalities are playing a pivotal role in making some people get excluded from the mainstream society and system, while at the same time giving the opportunity to the people who are already well off, already coming from a very social economic good, with a very good socio-economic background, and how these people are actually practicing caste discrimination. And it's not in the layers of the traditional way, such as doing untouchability, not sitting with the people who are coming from the marginalized caste, but the way they in a fancy manner, with the layer of language, with the layer of intellectuality, how they are performing the caste discrimination in terms of excluding the voices of the people who are coming from the marginalized caste. And that's what I found, such as if you go with this concept that has been given by Miranda Fricker, that is epistemic injustice. So the kind of epistemic injustice is being done is that the people who are coming from the well-off families, people who are coming of very good socio-economic background or upper caste, they have the socio-economic capital already. And the way in which, in fancy jargons, in the fancy manner, in fancy language, when they speak about something, that is considered as valid, while at the same time the people who are coming from the marginalized caste, they don't have that legacy or that capital, that social capital that make them feel very confident. They have been excluded and they have been ignored in some of the crucial discussions about social affirmative action, social justice. So this is the kind of structural disadvantages I was facing in that institution. And I feel like every single, because of my personal experiences, I feel like, and also I've done my thesis on caste discrimination and exclusion in higher education institution with some of the students from University of Edinburgh, University of Oxford, and some of the universities in India. So that was my thesis that was based on participatory action research. And I realized these experiences are not my personal experiences, but these experiences are collectively shared among all of us. and being placed in different university in different manner by the students who are coming from upper caste. And this is the problem. And I think that's how we navigate with it. We struggle with it. And at the same time, we are constantly focusing on our studies, making ourselves being seen in the university, while at the same time doing that struggle to be identified as humans and also as scholars, as intellectuals, because we don't have that social capital. The only capital that we have is the education and the kind of knowledge, that lived experiences that we have. That is our legacy, and that is our treasure, that through which we can actually be into the places and contribute to the best of our knowledge. And that is not even valued sometimes. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for putting all of this out there. That was deeply moving and inspiring. That how you was the one to bring out the voices of so many Dalit peoples out there. So, moving forward, I would like to ask, speaking of Ambedkar today, which of Ambedkar's ideas do you think are most relevant for today's youth, especially those living outside India or even in India?
So, if you ask me who's the most relevant scholar in India or globally, then I would say definitely Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Baba Sahib Ambedkar has given the idea of caste, social inequality, class, economic inequalities. They are so much prevalent and so much relevant these days. Then I feel like Ambedkar is everywhere in the daily sphere, and then his ideas. So initially, when I was in my school, unfortunately, even the way the education system is removing the relevance of Ambedkar from our curricula is such a disheartening thing, because now I just reflect on the memories and the kind of experiences I had. I realized that even in my school as well, and all the people who have pursued their education from CBSE, they understand that the way, the idea of untouchability, the idea, the contribution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has been taught to us is not up to the mark and is not in a justful manner, in a fair manner. So, for example, if I tell you untouchability, that has been presented in the school curricula in a manner that was existing in a prehistoric time, doesn't really have any relevance now. But at the same time, it is so much relevant that we see on our everyday basis. If you are coming from a Dalit community, you have to always deal with the stigma that you are coming from the lower caste. You don't really belong to the places where the intellectual people are sitting, working on the laptops. You are made to do the manual scavenging. You are made to do the sweeping, because that's your work and that's you have to do every day. At the same time, uh, Constitution, which is the biggest and the largest document in the world and still alive in terms of the values and the kind of rules it has provided, and that is the biggest power of our country through which we are running even till date. The way it was taught to us is like, okay, Constitution, the bag of borrowings. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was given the task to make the Constitution, and he was not just doing it for the sake of doing it. He was reading a lot of documents, a lot of constitution in all over the world, and then getting inspired of some of the relevant rules and ideas, and then he incorporated those rules, for such as fundamental rights, that has been inspired by US. So that's how he incorporated those rules and those fundamental rights, those articles that we have in our constitution. At the same time, the way it was portrayed in the school curricula is like, okay, bag of borrowing. That's how it was ingrained in the minds. And I'm sure the people who are coming from the upper caste as well, they have been gone through the same kind of curricula in their schools. And this is how it is being taught to us. So if you ask me that how relevant he is relevant in terms of the intellectual epistemic injustice that is happening right now, in which the upper caste people who are extracting the information, who are extracting the knowledge, extracting the research data from the people coming from the marginalized caste, at the same time portraying themselves as the intellectual experts, but at the same time not really giving the opportunity to them. That is the caste system. That is the relevance. And if you take out the data, or if you see caste everywhere, if you talk about the people who are coming from economically backward communities in India, you'll see that those all are majorly are from Dalit communities. If you take out the data, who are the people who are mostly vulnerable to the climate adversities, at the same time people who are facing the discrimination, violence, or domestic violence, who are in at the worst in the social strata, they all are coming from the Dalit communities or the marginalized Adivasi communities. So this is the kind of caste system that has been built up, and this is how the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's idea are still alive, that it is not the individual problem, it is the social problem that has been built up with so much uh, power, with the dominance, with the oppressor, by the oppressor, that right now we don't really question the system, we question the people who are coming from the marginal, because it's easier for us to blame the vulnerable because they don't have the capacity to actually stood up for them.
Okay, Aarti. I think you explained it very well and clearly about the ideas of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Now, I would like to ask that today about Mr. B.R. Ambedkar, in what ways the ideas of his social justice have been realized in a meaningful way?
Uh, I feel like Baba Sahib Ambedkar's ideas are meaningfully filled with the work that has been given, that has been done by the people who are coming from the marginalized caste. If his idea to educate, agitate, and organize, we all are the people who are coming from the marginalized caste. We all are practicing that, and that is the same thing I'm also doing. So, the first thing for us is the education. That is the force of transformation in the society, and it is so basic for us to understand that how this basic right is also not being able to be utilized by the people who are coming from the marginalized classes because of the social hierarchies in which we are lived in which we are born, where education is not the priority because we struggle to get the bread and butter. So if you ask me, the area that I come from, how his ideas is being utilized, if you see me right now speaking to you globally on the matter of caste, is because of his ideas and his contribution that he has provided. But at the same time, we need to understand the Dalit representation cannot be tokenistic in terms of, okay, having one Dalit professor, one Dalit student in the classroom, one Dalit administrator in the system. This is not how it was meant to be. This is not how he was wanted to have Dalit people and their representation in different sectors. So it should be the truth realization. That is the idea of Jyotiba Phule, one of the leader and scholar for anti-caste, where he said that the representation of the Dalit voices should not be done in a very pseudo manner in terms of having the Dalit voices and representation by somebody, but having the personal experiences and the way they come across. I think the idea of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is realized in a manner in which we are trying our best to actually get into the places which are not denied to us, in which we are made not to belong to, in which we are not really respected, in terms of that demeaning gaze that we get from the people coming from the upper caste. And at the same time, they just make us feel like, oh, whatever we say is not relevant. But at the same time, just like I mentioned, Miranda Fricker, that the way the intellectual portray the Dalit voices in terms of very fancy language and in a very academic jargon, that really doesn't mean that they are intellect. In Robert Chambers' idea, in decolonizing research, we should understand that we need to give the social agency and power to the people who are at the margins, who are struggling, to understand their lived experiences through their manner, and also giving them the social agency that they are actually the contributor of the research instead of being the data set for someone to be getting into PhD or to be doing academic works. Yeah, so this is how I feel.
I think whatever you mentioned was really relevant today about Mr. B.R. Ambedkar. It's the thing that his ideas were so timeless and eternal that is giving the voice to Dalit students today. So speaking about them, what advice would you give to young Dalit students who want to speak up but feel hesitant because of their background?
I feel the only advice, sometimes we feel like, okay, we don't have that particular vocab that through which we can actually represent ourselves and through which we can express ourselves. At the same time, we don't feel that much confidence because, of course, the kind of social background that we are coming from, if you say half of, like, majority of the people who are the first generation are the people who are coming from the marginalized caste. And the saddest part is that the people who are coming from the well-off communities, they don't really understand that how privileged they are, that they have their parents are educated, their grandparents are educated, but at the same time, we are the one who are the first learner of our society, our family. And that's why it is difficult for us to actually navigate through the systems, because we don't have anyone to guide us. We are just navigating the system, understanding it practically, doing stuff, and then getting failed in that, and at the same time doing mistakes and learning from them. So I feel this is the power that is being portrayed, that has been practiced by the upper caste people to make you feel demeaned in social conversation in communities. And that is the kind of caste discrimination or caste exclusion that is being practiced in different layers and new layers. And this is one of them. So don't really get scared of that particular experience of your life. Speak up, even though sometimes you feel like you are not really making sense. Just speak up, speak your lived experiences. That's what matters. And this is how we can actually making people think of the concerns that we are facing, because until and unless you speak about it, people would not gonna resonate with the things that you are going through. And I'm sure, if I'm speaking about my experiences and my learnings, I'm sure somebody at the other side coming from the same communities and the background would be resonating with this idea and would feel that confidence, and also that belongingness, that we belong to the same community, we belong to the same system, and we need to stand against that together. At the same time, if you say the people, I mean, if I talk about my experience, so although I was very much scared of that new ecosystem in which I was I was studying, and talking to the students and even my class fellows, it was a challenge for me to actually get involved in the conversations with them, and also understanding what they are saying, how to contribute my points, because I'm not that good in English, but at the same time I know what they are saying because I've studied that in Hindi though. So one day there was the decision that okay, I would be the CR. So I became the CR. At the same time, now was having the responsibility to actually circulate the messages, and I was working as a mediator between the student and the professor. So one day, my class fellows, I'm sure whosoever would be listening this podcast would understand this even very well. That I was asked to drop a message to one of our professor who was a male, and they said, okay, we would not be coming to the class. Just drop this message to sir so that he would not take attendance. I was like, okay, I'm messaging sir. That typo happened. That message turned into massage. So I was like, I'm massaging sir. And then the way they started bullying me, I was like, okay, I'm sure some of the typo has happened to them as well. But was it in the same manner, the way they are treating me, would they be treated by the same manner, or by other people in the same manner? So that's really frustrated me. And now when I reflect on these experiences, I realize that this is the mechanism in which we are living in, that even if some mistakes happens to you or by you, then these people would be coming up with this weapon that, oh, you don't belong to this place because you don't know to speak in English language, and that's why you don't belong to these places in a particular language. But we are not. It's just because the social system in which they are born is giving them the privilege to be that confident to speak about themselves. And I'm even in my masters as well abroad, the kind of structural barriers I found is that there are some people who are becoming who are saying themselves or pretending themselves as development practitioners. At the same time, they are gatekeeping the information. So when I became the education officer, I used to have all the information firsthand, and then I used to disseminate that information among the student body. But at the same time, I realized that the people who I was sitting and living with, these people are gatekeeping the information in terms of not really letting me know what kind of opportunities are there can apply for, and at the same time not really consider me being a part in the conversation when you are the one who's come to other person in the same perception. Okay, these people are also coming with the same kind of information. So even through the social media and through other platforms as well, I feel like the people should speak up about their experiences. The lived experiences matters the most, and that would be the giving the leverage to the other people to actually resonate and also speak about the concerns that you are facing. So it's better to speak up. So this is the kind of advice I would be giving to the people who are coming from the same background and being hesitant in speaking up something.
That was actually really interesting, Aarti. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable insights with examples and your lived experiences. It was really nice having you today. And do you have anything to add, any remark or anything?
I feel like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Baba Sahab's ideas would be relevant to us, and I think we need to live up on them. And my advice to all the people who are coming from the marginalized caste is that education is the only weapon for us to actually come out of this cycle of caste discrimination and social hierarchy that has been ingrained to us. And that's opportunity and utilizing it as much as we can, because sometimes people feel like, oh, you have reached to the some of the global universities now, you don't need, but they don't really understand the economic network that they have. They are really helpful in terms of getting their opportunities, the upper caste people who are utilizing it. For us, we don't have that kind of leverage with us, and that's why education is the only mechanism. And the way we network and the way we talk to each other, we all are on the same boat, coming from the marginalized caste, and we need to help each other.
So, thank you for joining us today. Also, for our listeners, Dr. Ambedkar's vision continues to challenge us to confront inequality and work towards justice in meaningful ways, just like you. So, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep learning, questioning, and advocating. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining, Aarti. See you soon. We'll stay connected.
Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
This is Tasveer Fatma Naqvi signing out from Sarim Podcast.
Thank you.
Bye bye.